KPBS On Demand is supported by UC San Diego's Art Power, presenting Isidore's String Quartet, performing works by Haydn, Billy Childs, and Dvorak, February 20th at UC San Diego. Pre-performance art talk with the artists at Conrad Prebys Concert Hall. Tickets at artpower.ucsd.edu.
Welcome in San Diego, it's Jade Hindman. On today's show, hear about an exhibit at the Museum of Us that explores race, power, resistance, and change. This is KPBS Midday Edition, connecting our communities through conversation. The San Diego region, much like the country, has a long and complex history when it comes to race. To tell those stories, though, it takes time, research, and collaboration. Well, at the Museum of Us in Balboa Park, a group of artists, researchers, community members, and museum staff set out to do just that. Their work began nearly a decade ago. The exhibition is called Race, Power, Resistance, and Change, and it opened late last year. A couple of those artists join me today, Einar and Jamex de la Torre. They're brothers born in Guadalajara, Mexico, and raised in Southern California. They currently live and work in San Diego and Baja, California, and their immigrant experience and bicultural identities have shaped a lot of their work. Einar and Jamex, welcome.
Hello. Hi.
Hi, so glad to have you both here in studio with me. First and foremost, tell us about your work. Your signature style mixes blown glass sculpture and installation art. So what attracted you both to this mixed media?
Well, it was something we developed together. Working with different mediums was what always attracted us to do. We started blowing glass in the late 1970s, so we've been involved with the medium a long time, and now we're also including a lot of lenticular printing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we realized early that we didn't want to be pegged with just one medium, and we wanted the ability to be able to traverse different ones, and things we've never worked with before could be part of our wheelhouse.
Wow. Well, Jamex, indigenous ancestry, the migrant life, and your Mexican background have heavily influenced your work. Tell me a bit about that. Why have you focused on that?
Well, I don't know if we exactly have focused on that. Having lived and having grown up on both sides of the border provides us with a pretty large wealth of a resource to draw upon as artists, and we freely do.
Yeah. Einar, is this creative approach really a big part of who you all were invited and collaborated, why you guys were invited to collaborate on this race exhibit?
Yeah, I think that when Melinda Bernadas invited us to be part of this exhibition, or this sort of very complex subject, I think the fact that we're sort of border and a lot of our practice has to do with traversing the border and sort of the semi-permeable membrane that it is. I think when you are from one country and you move to another country, a lot of the issues of identity come up, and you start seeing yourself as an insider-outsider on both cultures. And we realized that was very important for our practice, is to be able to speak from the other side, so to speak.
Mm. And Jamex, why did you want to be involved?
Well, I think it's a very relevant subject for these days, and it's a cultural process that the country has gone through that we haven't resolved, and right now it feels that we're taking steps back. So yes, we're deeply honored to be part of the exhibition.
Mm-hmm. Tell me more about that, about why this exhibit is so timely.
It's so timely because it brings a very clear context of how it has affected our lives. It's really shocking to understand that terrible, nefarious practices such as redlining happened in my lifetime. Mm-hmm. And now we're feeling that things are slipping out back is it's just outrageous.
Yeah. Einar, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think that a lot of the institutions that we thought were stable are being shaken. And in terms of race and identity, and I think that having discussion about it is always good, especially revisiting the discussions when many thought that this was something that only happened in the past.
Mm-hmm. Another key part of this exhibit is resistance. How do you all explore that through your art?
Well, I think true art making is, in one way or another, an act of resistance, because you give yourself permission as an artist to do what you really deep down need to do, and that is inevitably becomes an act of resistance. Our job as artists is to reflect who we are and our place in society.
Yeah. There are so many ways to resist, and art certainly is one of those ways. Einar?
Yeah, I think historically, if you look at what artist's position has always been a kind of mirror to society. Not that it is the change, but it is definitely a big part of the change, because it's part of the visual language of the times, and therefore the voices of resistance are going to be very, very much in the forefront of that. So it's kind of funny, not the best soapbox in a way, but it is part of the dialogue.
Yeah. Well, tell us about Castaways, your piece that displayed at the entrance of the exhibit.
Well, our piece is loosely based on the paintings of colonial Latin America called
Casta paintings.
The Casta paintings that show the different racial mixes, which was a novelty at the time for Europe, because those mixes had never happened before in this world. But the way they were classified is pretty terrible.
And the way we took them is to say the progeny of the mixed races, instead of saying it's this new race or this new breed, if you will, we took it more towards the sort of a nopalero, as in resistance. And it's very much about resistance, because it's a sort of a luchador, Mexican wrestler made out of nopales, the prickly pear cactus. You can't be more defiant than being green and having spines coming out all over you. So our take was kind of like saying, no matter what the mix is, the mixes are stronger because of that. And that includes all of the, all of the generations of immigration that have made America great.
Yeah, very interesting. Did working on this piece, or just generally collaborating on this exhibit, change how you understood any historical moments?
Well, not exactly, because they have been themes that we have explored over the years in our work.
But I will say it was a very difficult challenge, and because of that, it was exciting, because it's not the easiest subject to talk about. The obvious is obvious, so you can't point out the obvious in the problematics of talking about race and the constructs of it. But how to open the dialogue, because I think that's what art does, more than actually have conclusions, is to actually just get people talking and have opinions come out and foment discussions.
It really does, and oftentimes people talk about race, and I guess one of the big questions that comes up is how does one define race, the idea of race? And so I'm curious, how does the exhibit define race, and does that definition change over time as we look at the exhibit?
I think there has always been a tendency to simplify compartmentalization of race, and of course it's extremely complicated. And now that we have our genomes in this country, everybody's surprised that nobody is pure anything, and that's kind of a wonderful thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was our take, is to really challenge the concept of purity. It's ridiculous when you consider where we all originally come from and the way that the original humanity started to spread throughout the world. It's just a ridiculous construct. I don't think the exhibition is trying to define any of that. I think it is what it's doing is opening up a dialogue that has more to do with the times we're living in, because a lot of the old tropes aren't working, and of course a lot of them have been broken by now. So to have a new discussion on this, I think, is super timely.
Mm-hmm. Indeed, and it's interesting that it really does underscore and highlight how race is this made-up construct by the time you get through looking at it. You know, it shows and talks about how race has really shaped laws and daily life in San Diego. So why is San Diego and the border multinational region, you know, an important place to tell this story?
Well, I think it's not insular, as say, you know, being smack in the middle of the Midwest would be, with a more very clearly defined mixture that has happened a while ago. Right here we have a lot of dynamic changing of, you know, how many is the most cross-border point in the whole world is the San Isidro, San Diego, Tijuana border. I think that there's a very unique exchange that happens, but it's also the corner of the United States. It's also a microcosm in that sense. And for us, it's hard to imagine San Diego without thinking about Tijuana as part of it in the greater cultural region.
Jamex? No. You got it. All right. Well, here's something that I really want to get to. I mean, our nation is facing a very unsettling and divided time around immigration, and race is often intertwined in those conversations. As people who are from and live on both sides of the border, what message do you have for people who may not understand the complexities of the immigrant experience?
Well, these are truly scary times, to be honest. But I guess the message of hope is always that we have gone through this before, and the love and the truth will resonate in the long run, and we believe that.
Mm-hmm. Einar?
Yeah, I would just I don't know. I think I would add that that what we can't be scared of dialogue, so we should be talking about all of these things, even with people that we disagree with, because after all, we're trying to be part of a nation. This is no longer nation building, so we're a very different part of the history of the United States. Is still a young nation, no matter what, comparatively to other parts of the world, and we need to be able to have discussions about things and throw out some of the taboos and actually get rid of some tropes that just seem to refuse to die.
And one of the things, though, in talking to you earlier that you mentioned was on the other side of this resistance. What needs to happen? Tell me more about that.
What do you mean on the other side?
Nation building.
Oh.
When there's a system and it's failing, the actual rebuilding of that system.
Yeah, I think that maybe we got too comfortable. I remember, you know, when Obama got elected, we were even saying things like we're post-race, which we all weirdly wanted to somehow believe. Obviously, after all the things have happened in the last, decade, we've seen how we're very far from that, and we need to, maybe the bright side of this sort of low point would be that we can maybe establish new systems on how to communicate about these things, about people and about culture and about origin and ethnicity and all of these many layered complications that maybe we just need a new structure or scaffolding to talk about these things.
You know, I mean, at the end of the day, the title of this exhibit is really a call to action. So what responsibility, if any, do you think the exhibit places on visitors?
I think it puts visitors at a point that they have to confront their own local history. We are all a little somewhat familiar with the national history, but not with the local history. The fact that, like I mentioned before, that redlining was happening here in the 1960s. And to put a context to that is, I think, when you have a mirror to how you are actually feeling and you understand better, you understand better where the two sides come from. And that is also an important function of exhibitions like this.
Why? But okay, why is that important?
Because people have to understand the history or where these problems come from. They didn't just come out of the blue. They're just systems giving preference that shouldn't be there.
Right. Is there anything that surprised you all as you put this exhibit together? Was there any bit of history that you didn't know and discovered in the process?
Well, I think some of the history of the origin of the Balboa Park and exhibitions there were kind of stunning. Very different times, not that long ago, really. But to go back to the last question, I think one of the things that is happening, and my brother I think talked about it a little bit, was that all of the family histories of origin are being challenged by people taking DNA tests, which is both fascinating, and it just goes to show how much racism affected that people would lie about their origins in order to come out on the other side and so that all of that stuff is being shuffled around as we know it. And I think that this exhibition is a good context to start those conversations that in many families can be very difficult.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's a very thought-provoking exhibition, and it will remain up for quite some time, correct?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's semi-permanent.
All right. Well, I've been speaking with Einar and Jamex de la Torre. They are sibling artists with a piece at the Race, Power, Resistance, and Change exhibit at the Museum of Us, which will remain up throughout the year. Einar and Jamex, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's our show for today. I'm your host, Jade Hindman. Thanks for tuning in to Midday Edition. Be sure to have a great day on purpose, everyone.
KPBS On Demand is supported by the National Conflict Resolution Center, geopolitics, polarization, budget concerns, all topics that can cause tension in the workplace. NCRC can help seasoned and emerging leaders navigate polarizing issues with the Culture, Communication, and Conflict Certificate. More at ncrconline.com.